Today on Diksha, we look at what people get wrong about chakras. It is one of the big spiritual topics of the modern era that, let's say, has come more into light, which is the chakras. Now, the chakras, let's say, have previously been something of a mystery, especially in terms of yoga and Hinduism. And the reason it has been a mystery is because it was not so, let's say, developed in terms of being a study. And then recently there's the forms of yoga such as Kundalini yoga and Kriya yoga, which claim to develop the chakras in order to, let's say, develop a greater sense of self, to develop a higher consciousness, or to, let's say, link the individual to God. And so a lot more people are talking about chakras and the energy of chakras. Now, what this all boils down to, in terms of the definition of chakras, is an awakening of spiritual energy. So the human being becomes more aware of the spiritual centers or chakras, and also becoming aware of these spiritual centers, the human being experiences greater levels of awareness and greater levels of spiritual energy. Now, all that I have just explained is the popular teaching or popular belief concerning the chakras. But this popular belief and this, let's say, popular method is in fact wrong. And it is wrong based on the system of yoga itself, which is yoga identifies the Supreme Self or the Great Soul or God as being our origin, our reality, and that we as the individual are, let's say, spiritual entities, and what we will call spiritual is in relation to the human being. So our true nature, according to yoga, is that of being, let's say, celestial in nature, being divine in nature, being beyond the limits of this body. And so yoga itself seeks to re-establish an awareness of the link between the great consciousness of the universe, or the great soul of the universe, the super soul, and the individual. And so based on this idea of yoga, the chakra system that we are being taught, or people are becoming aware of, simply says that in order for the spiritual entity to have a human experience, that power is too great for the human vessel. It is too great for any vessel of a dense physical nature. So, for example, if we look at all forms of energy that are utilized currently, so sound energy and electrical energy, even water energy, such as the water pressure in a pipeline, if the energy being exerted is too great for the vessel that is supposed to be carrying that energy, the vessel breaks. So pipelines rupture, electrical wires catch fire, they burn. And so if the energy is too great for that vessel, then the vessel is ultimately destroyed. Now, when we look at the human vessel or the human being, we are not only looking at the physical body, because a lot of us will think in the gross sense, we will think that the human body is the human being. But that is at the basic level or the animalistic level. So then we have the consciousness, the mind of the individual, the ability to think and to reason. and also the emotional level of the individual. So the ability to feel, but also the ability to identify those feelings. And in a delusional sense, the ability to identify as feeling. And what that means is that, okay, I may feel a certain way. Let's say, for example, I feel fear. Now, is the fear originating in the human animal as an instinct, as a defense mechanism? Or is that fear a psychological issue where, based on my past experiences or my future perceptions, I may develop fear as a survival instinct in the, let's say, on the mental plane? And so, the human being is multifaceted: emotional, mental, let's say, logical, as well as physical. And so when we look at the amount of energy that the super soul or the universe has the ability to channel, we must consider that the human vessel is unable to handle that full amount of energy on the psychological level as well as the physical level. And so the science of chakra comes in, or the system of chakras come in, where the individual's, let's say, circuitry, the fuses of the individual that regulate the amount of current or energy that can pass through the individual, that is the chakra system. And so when we strive to become aware of chakras, let's say from a physical sense, a human sense, all we are doing is becoming aware of the circuitry of the human body and the circuitry of the psyche of the human being. And so it is not really a discovery of any particular energy or the channeling of any particular energy. We are merely becoming aware that there is energy that is being channeled. And so this is a great stumbling block in terms of spirituality and spiritual development. Because a human being situated in the material sense, who is striving to have a spiritual experience, will think that this awareness that they are developing, that they are becoming aware, is somehow a development of spiritual energy. But it is just like, let's say, as in my example, it is just like an electric circuit, where an electrician with the ability to test the circuitry with devices and measuring instruments, so an electrician will be able to test the voltage of a circuit and say, okay, well, this is a 110 circuit. Or they will be able to attach appliances to the circuit and lights, and based on this say, well, look here, there's electricity. Or look, this is the amount of power that the circuit has because you are able to drive this amount of appliances. All that points to is an awareness of the energy that is passing through the circuitry. What it does not point to is an ability to expand the circuitry or to develop the circuitry. Because an understanding of, or an awareness in this sense, does not translate directly to an ability to upgrade. Now comes the big question, because earlier I said that yoga identifies that we are spiritual beings, or we are spiritual in nature, and that our circuitry is linked to the human animal. And so, is it that our awareness is somehow misguided and we should really be aware of the spiritual nature having a human experience? The major reason for looking at it like this is because if we are looking at, or if we are identifying as a spiritual being, then we naturally take on a mentality that is greater than a human vessel. And although we may not be aware of all of our nature, it is the same thing if we consider our human nature, where I as a human being will not be fully aware of all my capabilities as a human being. I, for instance, will not be aware of how much weight I can lift, how fast I can run, how fast I can swim, or if I can swim. I may not be able to be aware of all my facets of the human body. And so it is not, let's say, if I put myself in the awareness of a spiritual being, automatically translating that I will be somehow aware of all the workings of the universe and all the capabilities of the universe. What this shift in awareness really translates to is that I am approaching the human experience with a greater, let's say, possibility for growth, for experience. I am approaching the human experience with a greater capability to have multifaceted experiences. Because what this means is, if I'm a human being seeking pleasure, it is different than saying I am the soul or I am a spiritual being seeking an experience of pleasure. Because it is the same as having, let's say, if we are seeking an experience in the human nature, if we know it is an experience, we, have a certain, let's say, amount of detachment, or at least an amount of awareness that it is a temporary experience. But if I am a human being seeking pleasure, it means I am seeking something that I perceive can be permanent. And so this is a great downfall of approaching the chakra development or chakra energy or the experience of the chakras as a human being seeking to experience spiritual bliss. We are trying to experience something that we perceive to be long lasting. Whereas if I approach it as a spiritual being seeking the awareness of a human experience, I am approaching this issue fully aware that it is everlasting and I am seeking something that is temporary. All of this is about shifting our consciousness of thought, because the chakra system is existing. It is not something to be discovered and developed. It is simply the circuitry of the human experience. And the chakra system does not, let's say, is not an end. It is not, for example, I will develop my heart chakra so I will feel exponential amounts of emotional well-being and love. But rather, as a spiritual entity, utilizing the circuitry of the heart chakra, I can experience the emotion of love as an experience, fully knowing that I am a spiritual being that is indulging in something temporarily. And so I do not become attached to the emotion of love and seek to have it as an everlasting feeling. The whole point of today's topic, is a shift in awareness of the chakra system. Because a lot of people seek to develop the chakra system as a way to escape human reality, when in fact the chakra system is a circuit that a spiritual being uses to experience temporary human realities. And it is this shift in consciousness, or this shift in, perception or perspective, that is key to transcending the limits that the chakras possess. because the chakras serve to limit the amount of spiritual energy that is channeled into the human experience, and not the other way around. So we must, in order to become enlightened beings, first develop a different point of view of the chakras. And so when we do this, the possibilities become limitless into what we can experience. Now, this obviously does not appeal to everyone, because not everyone is seeking to develop chakras in the first place, or to develop a sense of yogic discipline, or the extreme, not the extreme, but rather the ultimate goal of yoga, which is attaching the mind or attaching the human being to God. But really, what we all seek at the end of the day is happiness. And so for those of us who follow the path of yoga and the chakra system, I felt it was a key point to make that one of the major things that must happen is a shift in awareness concerning the system. So like always, I'd like to thank you for joining me on Diksha, right here on Sankhya Television, the first Hindu TV station in Trinidad and Tobago, and your #1 choice for inspirational, cultural, and spiritual programming.